Fantastic. Hey, Findlay, it's nice to see the whole group all at once. It's the first time I've seen a whole group like that in a couple years now. So congratulations to you and your tech folks there. And we're looking forward to a great conversation. My name is Tom Vance, and I'm a professor of education at Kansas State University. And my colleagues are
Hey everybody, Sean Arthurs. I'm a former history teacher, current lawyer, and a global training director of education. Looking forward to having a chat today.
My name is Lawana Davis. I am a professor of law at Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama.
and we would ask that you introduce yourselves to us.
I'm Ben Williams.
I'm Cody Melza.
I'm Ethan John.
I'm Braylon Morton, and our teacher is Mr. Dickman.
Mr. Dickman, thanks a lot for bringing your students to these hearings this morning. And we want to explore with you some questions, a question from Unit 6, which is, Thomas Hobbes noted that life in a state of nature is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. How has the human condition changed over time, and how is that change reflected in our expectations of government? Should the principles of natural rights or classical republicanism guide policy changes designed to improve the condition of all people? What are the most pressing domestic and global challenges facing Americans today and in the future? What policies can you suggest to address them? You may begin when you are ready.
Mr. Chairman, for the sake of clarity, we will be addressing the question out of order. With improvements in health and living conditions, more than doubling the life expectancy of the average person since the days of Thomas Hobbes, our expectations of government have expanded and have become more involved in our lives. As Thomas Hobbes suggested, that for the human condition to truly improve, the people would need to cede some of their freedoms in exchange for additional protection from their government. Since the 1900s, we have seen a shift from a laissez-faire philosophy to one of government regulation and intervention, as seen with actions such as the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, along with the implementation of social programs such as Social Security, Medicare, and more recently, COVID relief programs. As we move forward, the growing complexities of modern life continue to shift our expectations in terms of the role of government in areas such as healthcare, education, technology, and climate change.
Mr. Chairman, to effectively address global challenges such as health-related crises and climate change, the U.S. must develop policies which promote international collaboration and cooperation. To prevent the proliferation of health issues such as SARS, Ebola, and COVID-19, the U.S. should aim to work with organizations such as the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization to promote policies that hold countries accountable regarding effective medical treatment and the early disclosure of potential outbreaks, as seen with the Ebola outbreak in Guinea in February. In addition, climate-related issues such as greenhouse gas emissions and global warming require global cooperation and coordination, as seen with the Paris Climate Agreement, which provides a framework for financial, technical, and capacity-building support to countries who need it. This has led to nations such as Austria and companies such as Amazon establishing carbon neutrality targets by 2040.
Mr. Chairman, the most pressing domestic challenges facing Americans today involve systemic racism and political division, which require a return to the use of regular order and deliberation in our legislative process. Although systemic racism is not new, its divisiveness has reached historic levels, with groups such as Black Lives Matter and the American Immigration Council calling for reforms in policing and immigration, while groups such as the Proud Boys, QAnon, and the Oath Keepers have marched in Charlottesville and attacked the U.S. Capitol. In addition, political partisanship has created an unwillingness to discuss issues such as voting rights, as seen with 361 proposed voter suppression bills in 47 states. At the same time, the Democratic House majority has proposed House Resolution 1 to expand voting access, limit gerrymandering, and institute campaign finance reform. To better address these issues, Congress should return to the use of regular order to increase deliberation, compromise, and abandon the use of social media and 60-second sound bites to capture their voters' attention.
Mr. Chairman, rather than favoring one philosophy, policies aimed at improving the condition of all people should use both classical Republican and natural rights philosophies. Just as framers understood that an effective constitution must balance the common good of the nation while preserving the rights of the individual, effective policies require the consideration of both the individual rights and needs of society. This can be seen with the ongoing debate over whether or not the government should require individuals to get a vaccine for the coronavirus, or if exceptions should be made for personal or religious beliefs. The situation mirrors the dilemma seen in the 1905 Jacobson versus Massachusetts decision, in which the court upheld Massachusetts' mandatory vaccination laws. This decision has been used as precedent for both face masks and stay-at-home orders during the 2020 pandemic. We are now ready for your follow-up question.
Thank you, team. Let's jump right in with on the COVID situation as you were bringing it up. Huge flare up at an Ohio State game, right? And so the governor of Ohio comes in and says, from now on, anytime you leave your house, you have to wear a mask or you will be fined. Thinking about this from the natural rights and the republicanism standpoint, good idea, bad idea? What are people on each side saying about this? So again, you have to wear a mask or you will be fined every time you leave your house for everyone in Ohio.
Mr. Chairman, I think that if we were to look at both sides, the first argument would be that this is a violation sort of people's natural rights as seen in the Jacobson versus Massachusetts decision, in which he claimed that this vaccination for smallpox was dangerous to his health and his son's. But the court ruled that it was necessary for the good of society. And I think similarly, that would be the argument for why we are required to wear masks or we are fined. Because in order for the protection of the entire state, it is necessary sometimes to give up some of these rights.
Ms. Davis?
What is the modern right to life that the government should support for all citizens? In other words, how do you define what the modern right to life is?
Madam Chairman, the right to life can be defined through many aspects that have changed in society. For example, one of the things that can be used to determine the right to life are things such as different sorts of natural rights and things such as abortion cases, like the controversial abortion cases, can give us light into what is defined as life and what is not defined.
Yeah, I think I was sort of going in the natural rights direction, that if there are natural rights, then which of those natural rights should the government be providing? How do we define what that is today?
Madam Chairman, could you repeat the question, please?
What are natural rights today? What are natural rights in the modern? Because we all have a right to life. No one's going to come and just kind of kill you just randomly. So what's the right to life today beyond abortion? What's the right to liberty today beyond, we don't have to stop you from doing anything?
Madam Chairman.
What are these natural rights? What are they today?
Madam Chairman, I believe that today everyone should have the natural right to safety, as well as having the balance of being able to choose on the liberty standpoint. So I believe that in terms of the right to life, everyone should have the right to be safe with all this pandemic. However, I believe that everyone should as well have the liberty to go and choose on the vaccination standpoint.
Madam Chairman, I would like to add to what my colleague said and say that there could be an argument to be made that one of the natural rights to life that was not previously considered a sort of right to life is the internet and having access to the internet, especially during the pandemic when many things are online or virtual. It is imperative that all citizens have access to the internet so that they can communicate and do what they can in their life or do what they need to do in their life.
So let's go on that line of thinking a little bit more. So if if we define rights today that much differently, that, for example, you have the right to the internet, as you just said, what other kinds of positive things should the government or must the government provide and you would define as rights? For example, would you define a right to health care for all citizens or a good paying job for all citizens? And where would you draw the line at what the government should provide to us in modern times here?
Mr. Chairman, I believe there are many rights that the government does in fact provide that might not be clearly labeled in any document of sorts, as we have many rights that aren't labeled, such as we have the right to travel, to freely travel. We can go where we want for the most part, which can sometimes, as you said, can be somewhat restricted by the government, as we saw during the coronavirus, where we were restricted from traveling to certain countries for the common good, as it might have taken away certain natural rights or the right to travel. We might have taken away in return for the common good, as it will limit the spread of the virus around the world and in our own country.
But the right to travel is a little different than, say, the right that everyone should have, the government should provide us with internet service, isn't it? Aren't those two things different? And if they are, how are they different? In other words, people talk about positive rights, the government providing something to you, and negative rights. And do you support, does your panel, do you personally support both positive and negative rights?
Mr. Chairman, I do believe that we should have both positive and negative rights. I think what we're sort of highlighting is the push and pull between classical Republican and natural rights philosophies, in which the government should give us many things that we need to have a good and sustainable life. However, these things should not end up infringing on others' personal rights. There must be a balance between what is good for society and what is good for the individual. And so, like you said, with healthcare and having a well-paid job, those things are good for the society, but they might infringe on other people, such as in cases of like things like raised taxes and other things like that. So it is important to balance the sort of what the government should do in order to improve society as a whole versus what it shouldn't do so that it doesn't too heavily infringe on people's rights.
Thank you.
In February of this year, there was a coup in Myanmar. There are a lot of people petitioning the US government saying that we should intervene, freeze bank accounts, or not let US companies do this, or maybe even send military troops. Is this a concern to the United States at all? Should we be talking about this as a challenge for America? There's a coup over in Myanmar. The military is now running the country. Does anyone have, if you'd like to have one quick thought, I won't hold you accountable for this, but does anyone have a quick thought just on that? One quick thought?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to say that in dealing with the coup in Myanmar, it's important that the United States remains not a forceful policing, not a forceful sort of peacemaker in the world, but as a sort of aid. So if the people of Myanmar want and seek aid, then I think it is important for the U.S. to step in. But in cases such as there are many other instances where U.S. intervention was not really necessary, I think that the U.S. should not intervene.
Thank you. And I know I gave you very narrow for that. So thank you for just giving a quick thought.
Thank you very much, Unit 6. Excellent job. we'll provide just a little bit of feedback here. And I'll begin and tell you that you did a great job with your prepared statement. Your arguments were clear and they were specific and they were clearly connected to the questions. And the rubber really meets the road in your follow-up responses, where you were able to demonstrate really your tuberculosis example and Supreme Court case was really totally impressive, I thought. And in terms of my question, uh, uh, there is a difference philosophically between negative rights and positive rights. The United States historically has been a country that has protected negative rights. By negative rights, I mean that there are things that government cannot do to you. They cannot restrict free speech. They cannot restrict free exercise of religion. They cannot randomly search you without good reason, those kinds of things. And the more modern thinking about rights internationally, for example, the South African Constitution includes things like the right to health care, a right to a good job, and so forth. And there's a significant amount of disagreement and debate in the intellectual community about whether or not that's a good idea to 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 put things that the government must do for you on the same level of restrictions that we're putting on the government in terms of our negative rights. So I would just ask you to think about that distinction moving forward between positive and negative rights. Not that there's a clear or a better or worse answer, but it's a different way of thinking about rights, and I think a worthwhile one, actually, and no matter where you come out on the other side of it. But overall, really good job. We were able to ask you difficult questions because we knew that you could handle it. Good work.
So thanks, team. I have one suggestion as you go forward. When you're answering questions, if you can give from both sides. So for example, when I asked you about the mask question, you had a very good response from the from the classical Republican, the good of all. But I would also ask that you then say, on the other hand, the natural rights people might argue this. So my one suggestion would be, see if you can see both sides of the issue. One thing I particularly enjoyed about your presentation, as my colleague talked about your reference to the Jacobson decision, but what you did there is you also explained the father and son and the resistance to tuberculosis, the resistance to the shot and why they were forced to get it. I thought giving that context and be able to apply it, I thought that was quite good, and was helpful for me as a listener, because quite honestly, I had forgotten the facts of that one. So thanks for that, team.
Agree with what my fellow judges said. Going forward, I think a couple of things that I think may help a little bit, which is I want to hear more from the classical Republican side of your arguments. So whoever is doing that would like to hear more from those folks, even if it's just a response to a natural rights question. Second thing is, and I know it may have just been the kind of questions that we asked you, but try to spread it out a little bit more in terms of the responding to questions. Even if you have a chief responder, maybe if that person can think about, okay, let me try to shorten my answer so that I can allow someone else to come in, agree, disagree, or present a added point or even an opposing point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good work.
All right.
Good work, Unit 6.